Hello, it's been a long time, about 9 months, maybe more. I was told that by Velofil, who is a great YouTuber. I'm going to link his video, his most recent video, in the description below, because he's phenomenal. He does these exquisite videos about rebuilding bikes. They are so beautifully filmed and so beautifully shot. The camera angles are excellent, the composition is beautiful, the editing is perfect. Really, he puts me and everyone else who does videos like this to shame, pardon my French. And yes, I just have no excuse other than I have not invested in the time or effort to improve this video quality yet, but I will. I promise you. No, I'm not going to promise you anything. I may indeed do such a thing as to improve my video quality and the way I act on camera, maybe. So why the hell am I here? What am I doing? Well, like I say, not made a video in 9 months. That's because he commented, on my video, or I commented on his video, and then he told me I had not made a video in 9 months. And I thought to myself, has it really been so long? But yes, life has been getting in the way, I'm afraid. I'm a manager of a bike shop now. I've got 2 guys who work for me. I recently lost one and I've been retraining somebody else. I'm married, not long ago I suppose, but we've just moved house. I built a new shop in the house. I'm in the house right now and the shop simultaneously. This is the workshop behind me. I built this bench with my cousin, my nephew. My nephew and I built this bench. He did the basic structure, and then I put in all the drawers and everything, and the device, and varnished it, and added the coping and all this kind of thing, and made a few minor modifications. But yeah, he did a great job, and I'm very happy with it. I mean, I've got an air compressor. Let me try and get this off here. Homemade air compressor. Yeah, pretty good, right? So yes, it's a small bike shop. We're in Brunei. Brunei is not a big country if you don't know. If you're Bruneian and watching this, you know all about it. There's really not a huge customer base here, so a little bike shop like this is enough for now. I want to expand, of course. I want to improve the business, but you know, this is where we are right now, and I've just not been making the time to make videos. I enjoy making videos. I want to make videos, so let's make a video. Today's subject is going to be relatively short, 10 minutes or so, and I want to talk about, not including all this waffle that I've just done, I want to talk about cabling on your bike, and specifically British or French. Which style of cabling should you adopt? Why should you adopt a particular style? And what are the advantages and benefits of adopting a particular style of cabling? If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, let's go and show you on this video. Let's go. Right, part 2 of the video. I have here a beautiful bicycle which I'm going to use as my model. This belongs to a customer of mine, and I was working on this bicycle today when I asked the customer, would you like your cables done the correct way or the wrong way? And let me explain why I say that. So let's do a little bit of history first. We're talking today about French style cabling and British style cabling. Okay, so on British style, the right hand side shifter controls the front brake and the left hand side shifter controls the rear brake. That is the correct way to do your brakes if you live in Brunei or the UK or any other country that drives on the same side of the road as the British, which I believe is the left hand side of the road. But if I got that wrong, feel free to correct me. So, because we drive on the left, we have a particular style of doing our brake cables which complements that type of riding and driving on British roads. Now the French, however, they have to be different because, well, they were conquered by Emperor Napoleon, or they were ruled by Emperor Napoleon, the famous Corsican general who conquered most of Europe, and that is why the French and many Europeans and many French colonies, like Vietnam for example, more of that later, basically drive on the wrong side of the road, because he was a nutty old general, was Napoleon, and he hated everything about the British, especially the way the British always beat the French in war. And he could never invade Britain and control us, so he basically dominated Europe and changed all the rules in Europe and made everybody use weird style measurements called the metric system, and basically invented a new way to drive on the road. And the way that the British drive on the road is the correct way, because when the Romans, who were the people from the city of Rome in Italy, who conquered most of the known world several thousand years ago, when they came to Britain, they built our roads. The road I used to drive down from Nottingham to Leicester in the UK was actually a Roman road. The Fosse Way, for example, is a Roman road. They're usually very straight, very level, and beautiful roads. And the Romans told the Britons, right, you're going to drive on your cart or your chariot on this side of the road, okay? And we just adopted that, and we carried on doing that for thousands of years, and we were never conquered by the French, so we never changed. Basically, the French ignored the advice of the Romans and decided to do their own thing, and that is why certain countries in the world which were French colonies or influenced by the French, like Canada, for example, or Vietnam or whatever, drive on the right-hand side of the road, and the British drive on the left. And Brunei was a British colony or influenced heavily by the British, and that is why we drive on the British side of the road here. Now, the majority of bicycles in Brunei are actually cabled in the French way, which is, as I said, left hand front brake, right hand rear brake. So the reason for that is most of the bicycle imports we get here into Brunei come from countries where they drive on the French side of the road. And when Bruneians first started getting into bicycles, God knows how many years ago, the bike shops here and everything just assumed that that was correct, and they just carried on doing it that way. And nobody ever decided to actually do it the proper way, which is the British way, seen as, well, we kind of ride on the British side of the road here. And there's very good reason for why you should do your cables in the British way. So let's get on to that now and try and bang through that and explain it all. So number one, if you notice, the cables on this bike look very neat indeed and tidy. Originally this was done in the French style, I've now done it in the British style. Now it makes more sense this way, it's more logical to do it this way. And why? Because if you notice, the right hand shifter, the right hand cable here comes out of the shifter, the brake cable follows down here along the handlebar, pops out here and goes straight down into the front brake of the bike. Now the front brake of the bike, as you'll notice, has a little tail on it. That tail houses the port in which to put the cable through. And I think you'll notice something interesting. What you notice is that it's on the right hand side of the caliper. Why is that? Because the Japanese designed it that way. It's a Japanese component, it's Ultegra, and so the Japanese decided, I think the Japanese drive on the British side, correct me if I'm wrong, that is the correct side to put your gear cable. So it comes out the right hand side and it goes into the right hand side. And to illustrate my point further, if you look on most bike frames, the cable lug is on the left hand side for the rear brake. That means you take the cable from the left hand shifter and you come down the left hand side, as you can see, the left hand side of the bicycle, and head off directly to the rear brake. It is the shortest distance, and as we all know, the shortest distance is always the fastest distance, okay? So this is the fastest way to cable a bike. But not just that, look at how neat and tidy this looks. If we were doing this the French way, we'd be taking the left hand brake cable, pulling it around the front of the head tube and down into the opposite side of the brake caliper here, and we'd be doing the same thing with the right hand side, taking it around the front of the head tube. And here in Brunei, people make these really big loopy cables that go right around the outside and stick out like this. If you look at some of the Specialized Alice bikes in Brunei, they're hideous because they have these great big bulgy cable loops in the front of them, which just look totally ridiculous, like Dumbo ears. And it's because they're doing the cabling the French way, and they want to make these big loops around the front of the bike. And then that cable continues to follow down the left hand side of the bike. So what you do is you end up with this big ugly mess of cables right in front that cross each other, And you can't even see your head tube badge. You know, the lovely head tube badge on a very expensive bicycle you paid a lot of money for is completely obscured by crisscrossing of cables coming across the front. They get tangled with the gear cables. It's awful. Whereas look how neat, tidy and streamlined this is. Possibly more aerodynamic, okay? So not just more logical, but also potentially more aerodynamic and faster. And another thing is, because you're going left to left, right to right, the fastest possible route, the fastest distance or the shortest distance, you use less cable. How much cable less do you use? Well, I cut a load of cable off this today when I redid the brakes on this bike and redid the gears for that matter, and I managed to save this customer, drum roll, 28 grams of excess cable and housing as a result of switching from French to British style. That's crazy. To put that in perspective, the lightest carbon bottle cage I sell in this shop currently is 24 grams. So you could have, for the amount that I've saved this customer, he could have a free extra carbon fibre bottle cage and still have 2 grams, is it? No, 8, 4, 24, yeah, whatever. He could still have like 4 grams remaining leeway to put elsewhere on his bike. So I basically saved him that weight. That weight now he can use to spend on other items on the bike, and it's weight that he doesn't have to carry uphill. Now I know it's only 28 grams, but still, why would you want that extra 28 grams if you don't have to? That could be the difference between a bike that weighs 8 kilograms and a bike that weighs 7.9 something. 7.9 something sounds a lot better than 8 kg if you ask me. I'd rather have a 7.9 something bike than an 8 kg bike, okay? 28 grams. And another thing, because you're going a shorter distance, because the cable is resting in less housing, you've got less friction. The cable pull on this is smoother, it feels better, it will last longer because even when it gets dirty, okay, the French style when it gets dirty, because the cables are so long, they get friction fast, and so they feel gritty and horrible really quickly. These ones will last longer, and because there's less friction, your shifting and your braking will feel smoother and nicer. So more aero, tidier, less weight, and better braking. Okay, better braking feel. But that's not the end of it. There's even more advantages than that. Having your front brake on the left hand side in the French style is actually dangerous. Okay, why? Well, if you're driving, particularly if you're in a country like Brunei or Britain or anywhere else where they drive on the British side of the road, the majority of your stuff is done with the right hand. You're drinking, you're signalling, you're pointing out potholes to other people in your group. Your left hand remains on the left hand brake, and that is the case with Bruneian riders that are using the French style as well. They're still using their dominant hand to drink, they're still using their dominant hand to indicate to traffic that's coming up behind them, because in a country like this, the traffic is on my right hand side, okay? And if I need to move into the traffic, I need to use my right hand to indicate. I very rarely indicate with my left hand, only maybe when I'm turning a left hand junction, and it's rare because the danger to me in turning left with a car behind me is minimal. The danger to me moving out in front of traffic or in front of that car is quite extreme, so my right hand is really important. And if I decide to brake for whatever reason, because something steps out of me in the road, and I need to slow the bike down, I can still apply pressure to the rear brake with my left hand while my right hand has not yet reached the right hand shifter. I can drop my bottle and I can go for it as fast as I like, but I can still start to apply pressure with the left hand to the rear brake. And that's important because I had a crash many years ago when I was a kid, a teenager. I hit a pothole or a speed bump in the road and it startled me, and I grabbed hold of my left hand brake, and because it was a mountain bike I was riding, which tend to be cabled in the French style because mountain bikers tend to use their rear brake more than their front brake, but they shouldn't be riding on the road, they should use a road bike for that. It was the front brake that I squeezed, and my bar just turned and I went straight over the handlebars because I locked the front wheel up. I can lock the rear wheel on a bike up, no problem, and still be absolutely fine. That's why kids, when they mess around on bikes, they're constantly locking up their rear brake because they can do all these cool skids. And perfectly control it. It's really easy to control a rear wheel skid. It's not easy to control a front wheel skid, or when a front wheel completely loses traction, or when you lock up a front wheel. If you lock up a front wheel, you go over. If you lock up a rear wheel, you just slide a bit. It's fine. So basically, you can still apply braking force to your bike even if your right hand is off the bike. Whereas if this is the French style and I'm drinking or I'm signaling and then something happens and I happen to squeeze my left hand brake, I will crash 100%. You will go down, okay? So it's really dangerous for Bruneians and British people, if you're in the UK, for you to be riding with the French style. You really need to switch to the British style, because obviously you get all the advantages of lighter, more aero, better looking, nicer braking feel, but also it's actually safer. And finally, just talking about front and rear braking, your right hand, if you're right-handed, and most of us are, sorry if you're left-handed and you want to do it differently, that's fine, but your right hand is your most dexterous, means the most sensitive, and it's also the strongest hand because it's your dominant hand. Just like your right leg is stronger than your left leg, that's why your right leg is in a car given the task of braking, and your left leg, which is kind of your dumb leg, is given the task of just stamping on the clutch. And that's why if you've ever tried to brake with your car, manual car, with your left leg, the car just stops dead. It's really hard to do carefully because your left leg is too stupid to apply force carefully. Your right hand is very good at that. So it's important to keep your right hand on your best brake, because this will stop you faster. If you're slowing down in the road, yeah, and you apply your front brake, your rear wheel will start to lift off the ground, so your rear brake becomes less useful under an extreme situation. It's your right brake which does most of the braking and most of the control, so you really want your best hand on that job. Basically, it's the strongest hand for giving the most braking force, but it's also the most careful hand for applying that force with, moderation. So, you know, the old saying, with great power comes great responsibility. This hand isn't capable of being responsible with the front brake. This hand is. So, for goodness sake, if you're in Brunei, come to my shop and get your cables switched to the British way. You don't even have to come to my shop. Go to any shop in Brunei and beg them, please stop cabling our bikes in the French way. We're not French. We don't live in France. We don't live in Vietnam. We live in Brunei. And Brunei, we drive on the British side of the road, the better side of the road, the more sensible side of the road. And we want our cables lighter, more aerodynamic, better feeling, okay, and safer. There you go. That's my little presentation. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe.